This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon to all of our viewers around the globe. We have started off this afternoon sunset safari in no better way, in my opinion, with this awesome view of this young male leopard. We are going to sit here and watch him for a while and see what he gets up to. So hop on board and welcome to your very own live safari from the African bush. So this young male has been around the same spot for 4 days, coming on to day number 5 already. So he and we, I guess, are so lucky to be able to spend some time watching him. My name is Eric. Behind camera is Owen, as always. And like I say, we are here in the Timbavati riverbed looking at this beautiful young male leopard who's enjoying the shade in this afternoon light. And we drove past pretty much just to check to see what had happened with that carcass. And it looks like it might just be 1.5 legs left. We couldn't see the neck, we couldn't see the vertebra, we couldn't see anything more. It was just the legs dangling, and that is the tree in question. And I think it's just such an effective tree to hold a carcass in. So he is happy to just sit and slowly but surely feed on this carcass bit by bit. It's now quite hot, so he must be coming down to lie on the nice soft sand where it's a little bit cooler and try and catch some breeze. And he's been putting on a show. He's been playing roly-polies down the hill. He's been looking at us, and so I think we're in for a real treat of an afternoon with this young male leopard.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to your live safari of today. Craig and I have just been watching this incredible small little herd, and I've got another friend. I'm trying not to disturb him here. My name is Lauren. I don't know if we can get this. I do have Craig on camera. Look, I don't know what animal this is. I think it's a wasp of some sort. How lovely! I'm whispering for a wasp, can you believe it? We don't see too many insects around anymore. Nice one, Craig. That was all of our introductions. I just thought I would show you that gorgeous insect. And it's a very, very hot day today here in Djuma, really hot. And I can imagine these elephants are feeling the heat too. Now, from what I can see here, you've got 3 adults and 2 youngsters. One youngster is slightly older, approaching teenage years, and then you've got a much younger one. And this is very, very small numbers for an elephant herd. Only 5 in total that I can see. Unless there's some others behind that we haven't managed to count yet, it's very, very small. Now, there is a carrying capacity for elephant herds, but this is particularly small. Sugar Bits, you are asking a question, but I did not hear that for the trumpets of the elephant. So one more time, Londeka, there's more behind us. This must be the rest of the herd. Sugar Bits, elephants are really not visual. We've been talking a lot about intelligence and perception of animals and senses. Elephants have very small eyes. They're not very visual animals. If you look at the size of their eyes in comparison to their skull, that immediately tells you that they don't use their eyes, so they will smell. Exactly that. You are right. They will use their nostrils to navigate to whatever delicious vegetation that they actually want to eat. Now, their size of their eyeball is actually said to be on par with humans. And if you think of the size of our skull compared to the size of an elephant's skull, that shows you that they really don't rely on vision. They're said to be slightly short-sighted, like myself. I can assure you that's not me, it's the elephants behind us. They're said to be slightly short-sighted like myself, and they only really see ahead for 50 meters. Now that's not very far. They've not got long-distance vision. So that's why they will use their nostrils. So I'm going to sit here for a little while and then head to the hyena den.
Welcome to Djuma, and on our side of the property we have just found this little steenbok male, one of my favorite antelope. What a nice start to the afternoon. My name is David Hancock. On camera we have Theo, and we are going to be exploring with you this afternoon. What's cool about this sighting is that he's standing still. Normally they are very skittish. When you check them, they don't stick around for too long. They'll dash off, look behind them, see if anything's chasing, and then disappear into the thick bush. Now, this little guy is quite content to just forage around here, eating whatever he can find. They're predominantly browsers. They like forbs and nice new shoots of leaf. An interesting and unknown little fact about steenbok is they are the only antelope that will actually utilize a burrow, hide in a hole. Perhaps an old aardvark burrow or somewhere they're digging. They're also the only antelope I've ever seen actually bury its dung. It just did this a little while ago before you came to us. Defecated and then proceeded to scrape it closed with sand. Which is a rather bizarre thing for it to do. The books will tell you it's a way of masking its scent, but I'm not exactly sure. Alison, you've asked why is the steenbok alone? And that is just their social structure. They generally make up a territory of a male and a female, and then they'll have their young. When that youngster grows up, it'll move off to find its own mate and establish its own territory. This is the little male, so the female's probably around here somewhere. And perhaps there's a youngster with the female. Well, I hear some elephants trumpeting down towards the dam. Perhaps it's been picked up on the dam cam, so I think I'm going to go and investigate.
Standard operating procedure this afternoon. We are sitting with a herd of elephants, feeding on nothing other than sticks. Classic Pride lands. These elephants here seem to love it. Hi, I'm Mike. Behind the camera is Seb, and you are joining us, rather, here at Eco Training Pride Lands Conservancy, and it is a lovely hot afternoon. Very hot for a winter's day, but it's lovely. And we actually thought these elephants wouldn't be too far from the dam here at the Eco Training Camp, and we did find them, which is fantastic. As you can see, they are well camouflaged amongst these twigs and sticks, but not far from the large trees of this drainage line where they can hopefully get a little bit of shade. This is that herd that we've seen before with Alicia Keys, who's their matriarch. And you can see this lots of elephants. You can see even walking in the background there, feeding on whatever vegetation is shielded by these dead sickle bushes, which is great. So appetizing. Look how it's using its trunk there to just move some of those sticks and branches to get to whatever's tastiest. To be honest, whatever's tastiest is whatever they can find at this time of year, really. I look around us, I mean, there's elephants everywhere around us, so they are feeding on whatever they can. Linda's asking if big ears equal better hearing. Linda, generally speaking, animals' senses, we can roughly define how good they are by the size of the appendage. So if they've got a very long snout, they should normally have very good smell. Big ears is a very good sense of hearing. And big eyes equals great eyesight. So you can see this elephant's got tiny eyes, well, compared to its size. So they're not using their eyesight as their main sense. Their ears, however, are very big, and so is their long nose. So they've got great hearing and great smell, and they use both of them to great effect to communicate with each other and to sense danger.
Good afternoon. It is a marvelous, a stunningly beautiful day out here at Tswalu Kalahari. It is great having you with Davy and myself, Dylan. Davy's on camera and I'm just cruising around enjoying myself. It is a fantastic afternoon and I hope you're going to stick with us to see what we can find for you. I've got two things that I really want to knock off while I've got you all. One, and if you want me to show you the nest of the Shelby family, if you want to, just give some feedback there and I will gladly make the time on this drive to actually take you to the nest. If you want to see what that looks like, just kind of put some comments there, let us know, otherwise I won't do it. And then the other thing is that I've got a very cool, very exciting little nest that I want to show you for this afternoon as well. And I was actually going to go to it yesterday, then we had that whole wildcat event, so I'll put that on hold. But I checked on it a little bit earlier in the day today, and so I think you're going to be quite happy with that. But yeah, let us know about the duck nest if you want to see the duck nest, and I will gladly take you there, because then at least you get a nice idea of, oh man, these guys are cute. And there's still 9 of them. I think it's yeah, and if you got any questions, use #WildEarth. Any kind of questions that you want to ask me, or our colleagues, of course. Just not anything about finance, please, or vehicles, but anything else. Feel free to ask those questions. Or maths. Don't ask about maths. Oh my goodness, these ducklings are just ridiculously cute. And they're waddling right up to that kudu now. And one's saying, hey, kudu. And still 9 of them. Like I said, this is good news. And again, you always get this one that just keeps on going further and further and further afield. I hope he's not going to become wildcat food. Even I would be mad with that wildcat though. Sarah says the ducklings are the cutest. Oh my word, cute is like the starting point for these little guys. And they are just off the charts adorable. And I love the coloration on them, that black and white. It's very broken coloration, and actually it's certainly got to aid the camouflage in some way.
Not quite ducklings, but definitely having the best time in the water. We are surrounded by elephants. Just have the best fun. It's different herds, I think. There's elephants behind us, elephants in front of us, elephants to the other side, and I think it could be different herds. Look at that youngster going for a swim, following the adult. Oh, it doesn't want to get his tail wet. Oh, close if that's possible, Craigie, because I think this is normal. The lodge will be in the background, but I think this is the older bull elephant that we got to know, both Tristan and I. He's got a tear in his left ear, and he is the perfect gentleman. And he's just watching. He's just watching everyone else have a big carry-on. Probably thinking, back in my day, we would never behave like that. It's almost summer temperatures. I can understand why they're just relishing the water right now. Now, water bodies for any species, there's an understanding that everybody requires water. And therefore, if different herds do arrive at the water body, they'll stay separate. They won't meet, they won't interact, but they also won't run away in fear. Oh, that little one's getting his tail wet now. Elaine, you're asking, can elephants drown? I don't believe so, because even though they're great big pachyderms, they're incredible swimmers. They are really, really good swimmers. Not only that, they're equipped with a snorkel in the form of their trunk. And that means they can submerge their entire body, keep the trunk out, and use it as a snorkel, which is incredible. But although they've got a great big body mass, I believe they're quite buoyant in the water, which allows them to be incredible swimmers. And primates and humans are one of the few animals that have to learn how to swim. We have to be taught. I went to swimming classes from under a year old until a teenager. And elephants and all sorts of other animals don't need to be taught that skill. As soon as they're in the water, they have the ability to swim, which is just incredible. So I don't think they can drown. But of course, in saying that, if they were to have an accident or be injured, or possibly a heart attack or anything like that, then inevitably they would drown. But otherwise, they're incredible swimmers and they just love the water. Their jolly walk to the water is one of the most amazing things to see out here. Pure happiness. So I think we're going to stay here a little bit longer and watch this elephant show continue.
So this leopard has embraced the relaxation pose and he is just enjoying this afternoon on the cold sand with this breeze, and he is every now and again rolling around and changing sides. And I mean, after feeding on an impala for so long, it's very difficult to see that he's fed. I mean, those cute little back feet that he has with those tiny little spots. And then once you start panning across his leg, it doesn't look like he's had like a massive full, like a male lion would have if he had fed. And that's just because he goes and he takes a couple of bites for a few minutes and then he digests it. Oh goodness, he's just putting on a show for us this afternoon. David, yes, definitely flat cat yoga. I wonder what pose this would be if we had to name it. But like I was saying, I mean, that stomach isn't full, and I guess because of his digestion, but also because he just takes little nibbles off of that carcass. And every now and again he picks up his head and he looks straight opposite the river. So he looks to the left of us. And there must just be something moving and that he can hear, that he just quickly looks at and makes sure that it's not an incoming threat. The pride of lions that we see around Ngala very, very frequently was actually found this morning not too far from here. And if they were to catch a whiff of this carcass after it's been here for 4 or 5 days, they might come investigate to see if there's a quick little free meal. And he would be very, very vulnerable then. And so he needs to be constantly aware. And I mean, if those lions were to make an appearance, the first thing he'll do is either climb up that tree or just try and get out of the area as quickly as he could.
Well, we did manage to catch up to the elephant that we heard. This lovely big bull. Chasing the breeding herd. There's elephants all over the show. And this bull has left the dam where Lauren was with that breeding herd. And there are more of the herd over to my left in the drainage line, and this big bull is following their path. Maybe there's a female that's in season and he's smelling her. But he is maintaining a close trailing distance behind them. This is not the first time I've seen this elephant today. He was at camp a little bit earlier today, between drives. He came right up to just below my room. And at the time I was actually playing my guitar, and I decided to serenade him. It was quite a cool moment. I must have been 5 meters from him, just sitting there on the ground, jamming some tunes. He absolutely hated Foo Fighters, but he quite enjoyed Johnny Cash, so it wasn't a complete fail. David, you reckon he's a bull with swagger? He did have a little bit of a swagger as he crossed the road there. Maybe he recognized my voice as the terrible guitar playing human that he encountered earlier. But what a lovely start to the afternoon. Who knows what else we're going to find.
So look who's joined the party. A hyena's just arrived, and look how close this leopard is to the hyena. This is incredible. Look at that view. That hyena, look, is going straight towards it. What's that leopard doing? Oh! The leopard, all it wanted to do was try and climb the tree. Look, it's going to go up. It's going to go up. Oh, no ways. That is amazing. And it's looking down at the hyena and snarling at it. You can just see tail on one side, leopard head on the other side. So this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. And this is why leopards hoist their carcasses, is to prevent things like hyenas coming in to steal it. And now that hyena obviously got the whiff of that carcass, realizes it's in the tree. Hyenas are completely incapable of climbing. And so it's decided to carry on moving. So it'll be interesting to see what this leopard does now, if it comes back down to continue relaxing, or if it decides that up this tree is the safe spot right next to the carcass. He doesn't want to get caught in between the tree and the carcass like he almost did with this hyena. And so maybe it decides to just rest here. But how is that? That leopard, just all it wanted to do was climb back up that tree. And that hyena got in the way most of the time until the leopard used the tree as a barrier and just quickly shot up the tree. And so it looks like he's back on the carcass actually. I mean, I can literally see a spot here and there. I can't see it too well. But that is just the type of interaction that I was never expecting this early on in the afternoon. So he is in the tree now. We might try and reposition and see if he decides to feed, or maybe he just decides to rest in the branch.
It's chaos here. Those two herds seem to interact. It's that little one and the mum's scolding it. Absolute chaos. Dewey the hippo was taking a complete tantrum. He hates it. He hates when the elephants come down to this water body. There's still a few elephants drinking, and there's another herd on their way. Wow. Those two herds were actually one big herd after all. Or at least related. Kinship herds is what you called herds. It used to be part of the one herd, but it got too big. I mentioned carrying capacity earlier on, and they split. So they're separate herds with separate matriarchs, but they're called kinship groups because they'll be related and they'll remain in contact. Their interactions will be nice. They will not be aggressive. Oh, wow. I've been waiting on an elephant pool party for quite some time now. Lots of emotions. You can really feel the energy when the elephants are around. And then this one's here just peacefully drinking. An adult can pull up to around 12 litres in one go, in one suck of that trunk. 12 litres. That's a lot of water. You can see the little blacksmith lapwing just casually hanging around. Not scared. Oh, the big ginormous elephant right next to it. So I think there's another herd on its way. So I wonder if it'd be worth just us repositioning to try and see if we can get the herd walking to the water. Or maybe they've chosen to take the opposite direction because of all that noise and pandemonium that was happening earlier. You can see just off in the distance here, Craig, there's two still fighting. I think it's two young boys. They're still clashing tusks. Okay, I'm going to try and reposition and see if we can get a view of any more elephants coming down to the waterhole.
So we have our answers to what this leopard's next move is. And he's decided to feed. And interestingly, I mean, when we drove past for the first time, we literally just saw the first two, well, the back legs dangling down, and I thought that was the last of the carcass. But what he's feeding on is the torso, and so there's a lot left of the carcass than I thought. And it looks like he's getting, it must be the rib cage that he's sticking his head in. And it's a pretty amazing feat. I mean, he's a little under 2.5 years old, probably, but I think 2 years and 5 months old. And he's managed to catch this fully grown impala ewe, who was basically exactly the same weight as him, I'd imagine. Yo, there's no more head left. I think there's just a little piece of jawline that's still attached to the skin. But the rest of the face is gone. And he must have gone and eaten the brain. So not only to take it down and kill it, but to hoist it up a tree like that. He nearly dropped it. So Nicole, if you were watching that, and I mean it was all so exciting and it happened so quickly, but the hyena is much bigger and stronger than a leopard. And so a leopard won't necessarily kill a hyena. It will be the other way around, in fact, because the hyena is just more powerful and stronger. And so a leopard will try, and it will hiss and snarl and try and intimidate the hyena, maybe by slapping it, but it will eventually cut its losses and retreat if it needs to. I mean, that hyena was a fully grown adult. It was probably close on 70 or 80 kilograms. He might be between 10 and 15 kilograms lighter than that. And so instead of risking injury and fighting an animal that's bigger and more stronger than him, he would eventually just run away. So he's really starting to get tucked into that carcass now. Yes, sunset does look like he's starting with a delicious early dinner of ribs, which he won't eat all of. I mean, he'll nibble on the very edges of the ribs and he'll try and get the meat in between. But usually leopards aren't strong enough to, or its jaws at least, aren't strong enough to break through and eat the whole rib. And so that eventually, once he strips it, hey, sorry, I forgot to finish my thought there, but basically I just looked and I saw that same hyena who's just cut its losses and is lying down on the road up ahead of us. So we might show you that in the next few minutes.
So we're still with the elephants, and they don't have to battle with anyone over food at the moment. They are just enjoying the shade. As I mentioned before, they weren't too far from the shade of these larger trees in this drainage line, and they're literally just all pushing themselves under whatever cover they can find, or for the most part, in order to stay nice and cool. And they will come down to the waterhole a bit later, I'm sure, and drink. In fact, it looks like they were there maybe very early this morning. There's a bit of mud on some of them, on their backs and on their bellies. But most of them are just now. What is that one doing with that massive branch? That's surely not very tasty. That looks like a dead branch. Maybe it's just getting the bark off of it. Very interesting. Oh, other elephant is getting too close to his branch. Don't take my stick. That's my stick. So it's actually good. That branch, I think it might be that particular branch that kept smashing Seb and I every time we went through this drainage line. So the elephants are busy doing a bit of modeling for us, remodeling, re-engineering. It's excellent. They are actually going to open up this reserve quite a lot. As I mentioned before, Pridelands has not seen elephants until the fences came down with the Greater Kruger for many, many years. So this environment has become quite thick. And with the elephants doing their thing, they're busy opening up areas and making it more like what it should be, a mosaic of thickets and grassy areas and woodland as well. It'll eventually be that most of these areas will only have the large mature trees left, and then some very small young tree recruits, as they call them, and then grassland, which is more natural. These thicket areas where there's lots of thickets of sticks and sicklebush and flaky bark thorns, that's a product of not having elephants around, so they're really, really important. Look at that, literally just chewing on that really dry stick, just getting the bark. It will take the branch, you'll see the branch on the other side, look at that, literally stripping, it looks like a piece of biltong, stripping the bark off that, or a piece of sugarcane. You know when you take the covering of a sugarcane and then you just eat the middle part. No, done with it. Wasn't as tasty as it thought. All of that fighting for nothing. Oh wait, it's not finished yet. Get a little bit more. Sophie's asking why female Asian elephants don't have tusks. Sophie, I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't know that. I thought all Asian elephants had the potential to have tusks. I'll have to do a bit of research there. But if they don't have tusks, it's almost certainly because tusks are generally used by most of the males for fighting against each other to dominate a herd of females and get mating rights. In African elephants, they all have the potential to have tusks. So this looks like it's a male, but females will also have tusks, usually more slender, but sometimes quite long, and male elephants generally thicker. Now, it surprises me that females don't have tusks, but I suppose they're very large, right? Much larger than most of the other animals that are found in that area, and so there's not really a reason for females to have tusks, if that is the case. That's interesting, though. I'm glad you pointed that out to me. I'll definitely have to do a little bit of research, because that is very interesting. I didn't know that. There's a little youngster pushing itself into some of the thickets there. What a lovely view.
Thoughts on me, or okay, we see cute things all the time. Cute meerkats, cute ducklings, all sorts of cute things. But what I want to show you now is going to be, you're going to have to just trust me on this. It's probably one of the cutest things, but the angle is going to be a little bit challenging. So I've got this, I'm not like a bird watcher. I enjoy birds, I know one or two of them, but I'm not great with birds. But I love looking for nests, I love finding nests. And for me, it's not about the actual nest itself, but the behavior of the birds, giving you the little clues and watching them and trying to figure out where the nest is, like that shelduck. I really enjoy that kind of stuff because it's a bit of, it's the bush lore rather than just, okay, that's a bird, it's a fawn-coloured lark and it lays X amount of eggs in it. So anyway, so I'm always on the lookout for nests. And what we got over here is something really, really cool. To many people, it might just be a common bird, but I absolutely love these little guys. This is a nest of a Cape turtle dove. Some people know them as ringneck doves. I think in some of the new books it's called the ringneck dove. And I was actually going to pop in here yesterday when we went down to the wildcat. And then we got this wildcat sighting, and then it just kind of didn't work out. But yesterday, the mother was still sitting on this nest the whole time. And I checked it 2 days previously. So now you've got these little chicks. There aren't even eggshells here because often the parents actually take the eggshells away from the nest to try camouflage where the nest is. So this particular one was a really, really lucky find. It looks like, and it's very difficult to see because the nest is actually quite high up. I'm 1.7 meters or just over 1.74 something. And if I stand with my arm outstretched, that nest is still another 1.5 feet or foot above the level of my hand. So that's probably sitting at just over, it's probably 2.5 meters in height, give or take. So it's difficult to get a nice angle in there. But it's just, how cool is that? And we'll be able to keep tabs on this nest over the coming weeks as well. But this is what I love. We are like right in winter. Okay, fair enough. We're kind of like past the midpoint now. We're going to slowly going into summer again. But like in winter, you got all these things already starting to breed. And the amazing thing for me is that they actually built that nest under our noses. We just need to start doing our job better and look harder for these things.
So this male leopard is still feeding. we had that hyena getting up and moving down towards the base of the tree to sniff around for any fallen off little bones that this leopard might have dropped whilst he was feeding. But so far no luck for that hyena. But this male leopard is getting tucked in, which is really cool. And the awesome thing about these hyenas is they trigger action like this. Because if that leopard didn't get interrupted and that hyena never came past, there's a good chance that he could have sat on that bank and he could have been there for another 2 or 3 hours before he decided to get up and move. So now that he's up the tree, I guess he just thought he might as well carry on feeding. But that hyena, if we have a look at it, is actually behaving quite interestingly, because we noticed that it was pretty nonchalant when it came towards the leopard. And it walked straight towards it, didn't see it. Or it looked like it didn't see it, and then it sort of reacted as the leopard snarled at it. And we've been watching it for a little while, and every now and again it will stand up and it will start rubbing its eyes. And it almost looks like his eyes are completely glossed over. And we don't know what has happened, but he's definitely struggling to see. And so there's a possibility that it could have run into something like a Mozambican spitting cobra and got venom in its eyes, and it now just is battling to see, because it's even secreting liquid out of its eye, especially on its left eye, and keeping them very closed most of the time. And so it seems like his eyes are hurting it. And then that just goes to show you, I mean, how insane a hyena's smell is. Because it went from onto the bank and it walked down the pathway, it went straight to the tree, and it looked exactly where that impala carcass was, from almost 60, 70 meters away. So there's a good chance he could have smelt that from a couple of 100 meters away when he got a quick little sniff of the decaying meat. It has been 4 days. It's been in the shade the whole time, so the meat doesn't look like it's in such bad condition, but it must be starting to stink. We haven't actually got too much of a whiff of it yet, but the meat does look like it's still quite red. If this was a tree with no leaves on it, there would be a very good chance that meat would have turned to an off maroon color, and in patches, especially close to the edge of the carcass, it would have started to go black. But this nice dense canopy is really sheltering it and just keeping it fresher. And so I guess this leopard is quite lucky that he's got some sort of natural refrigerator to keep this carcass fresh.
Well, we are just cruising down boundary here on the eastern side on the way to Chitwa Dam. I think we're going to go and explore there. I haven't actually been to Chitwa since I've been back here. I'm going to go and see what is up at Chitwa. Maybe check the fish eagle, maybe a crocodile. There's always something going on at the dam. This time of year is one of my favorites, right before the spring. It's when everything gets so dry and parched. Animals are thirsty and have to walk far in search of water. The food is scarce. just that building desire for the relieving rains that'll be here in a few months. A lovely winter afternoon in the bush.
So although this tree is providing beautiful shade, it's making it quite tricky for us to see this leopard and see a nice full view of him. So we're just readjusting our view depending on which part of the carcass he's feeding on. So might just see the silhouette of those whiskers. It's actually a really, really cool shot as he's nibbling away on that impala carcass of his. And I can see a hoof, and so it might be, sure, I can't see from here, but maybe it's one of the shoulders or up to the neck, possibly, that he's feeding on. Whatever he's getting into, he's needing to crunch a couple of bones. And so we're hearing the crunch every now and again. That little triangular shape at the bottom of the V, just where his leg is moving, is the hoof that I mentioned. And then again, such a cool shot of his tail. One of these sightings where we don't really need to see too much. We just sit and watch what he's doing and listen to the noises around us. Hannah, they do have long tails. I don't think they're much longer than other cats. They certainly, and if we look at a lion's tail, they tend to be much thicker, and so probably slightly heavier in proportion to their body weight to a lion's, and it just helps when they're balancing. Up in a tree like this, you'll see sometimes the tail will flick from side to side. It's also a very important signal for body language, so the tail will flick from side to side and they can communicate to other leopards via their tails. And so it's not necessarily much longer, but it does play a vital role in leopards, especially for when they're climbing up big trees like this. One of the most insane things is to watch a tail of a mother leopard when she's got new cubs and she's moving through the bush. And you can see that she basically talks with her tail. She lets off these little signals. The tail looks like it's got a mind of its own. It really is mesmerizing to watch that tail move.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to and Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Clive, and behind the camera is Marcel today. And you might be wondering what I'm doing sitting up on a rock here. And we've come quite a far way today. Like, really, I've never ever been to this part of the reserve before, which is pretty special for me. And where I'm sitting here and all the way stretching that way is all part of the Lebombo Mountains, which make up a lot of Phinda. And these rocks that I'm sitting on is all part of that. And it's all part of a volcanic eruption that happened about 140 million years ago, I think it is. And obviously these rocks break down and give us all these soils out here which attract all the animals that we're showing you every day on game drive. So it's important to see where it all starts, you know. And there's a lot of ways these rocks would have broken down over millions of years. Water and wind and the grinding of other rocks, and even this little thing here. Now on these rocks you'll see there's some white patches like this here. some orange patches like this here. There's this kind of darker grey colour over here. There's black over there. And all of these are different species of lichen, of which I think there's about 16,000 in the world, 16,000 different species. So there's a lot. And what this lichen is it's a symbiotic relationship between fungus and algae. And the fungus is what you can see, the actual like structural part of it. And the algae is what actually photosynthesizes and creates food for this little symbiotic relationship, for this little organism. So pretty amazing. And they actually help to break down these rocks as well, very, very slowly. I mean, you can imagine it's just small little pebbles. Mimi, where I'm sitting here is all part of the same mountain range. So it's in the region of about 140 million years old, this whole mountain range. That's when it was formed. Well, obviously an estimate, but yeah, pretty amazing. And for me, it's my newest thing that I've been reading up a lot about is all the geology here on Phinda. Aha, Peter, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you find it interesting. It's nice to sometimes just slow down, as I always like to do, get off the vehicle as well and walk around a bit. But also it's important to see, as I say, where all these animals come from and why they're here, and they're attracted to these good soils that come from these kind of rocks. Really cool. Anyway, I'm going to get back in the vehicle and carry on our game drive now.
Just made it down to Chitwa Dam and enjoying this little pod of sea cows. There's a baby sea cow. If you're wondering why sea cows, it's basically just a direct translation from probably my favorite language to speak, Afrikaans. Dis 'n baie lekker taal vir al die name van die diere. Basically means it's just a really nice language to speak it, and the names for animals are brilliant. COWIE is a sea cow. If you really stop and think about it, they do eat a lot of grass like cows. They are kind of bulky like a cow, and they love water. Obviously this isn't the sea, but on our coastline, way back in the old days when Jan van Riebeeck and the first explorers arrived on the Cape, there would have been lots of hippos up and down our coastline. We still get hippo on the east coast in places like St. Lucia, where they will go into the ocean. So that's kind of where the original naming comes from. Lovely to see that youngster out over the water, that nice pink belly. The oxpeckers all over it, getting any parasites they can find. Catching a little suntan. I wonder if its mom's gonna chase it back in the water before it burns that little pink belly. Trying to think some other cool names in Afrikaans. You get a vlakvark, which is a warthog, but the direct translation means shallow pig. I'm not sure why, perhaps because they're always burrowing underground. Below the surface, shallow, vlakvark, shallow pig, and then you get, it's another favorite, an eystervark, which is an iron pig, which is a porcupine. Not too sure where that one comes from, maybe because of the quills that stick you like iron. Of course, don't forget the kameelperd, which is a camel horse. Can anyone guess what that might be? What on earth out here in the bush would remind you of a camel horse? And no South Africans are allowed to answer. Often find it very interesting to study the different languages and different names of things. Our local Shangaan language, which is the local people group in this area, rely on onomatopoeia, which is basically they call things as they sound. So for instance, a zebra is a mangwa, and that's basically the sound they make if you listen to them. Mangwa, mangwa. Many examples of that. And translations of things that actually just really make sense, like animals being called according to their characteristics, their size, what they do, their tendencies. Very interesting how different languages have taken to naming things. Do we have any guesses as to what in the bush could be called a camel horse as we enjoy this little pod of sea cows? Well, I'm not getting any takers, but the answer is the giraffe. A camel horse, a cameel perd in Afrikaans, no other than the mighty, tall as the trees giraffe.
We have came across a gathering of water thickneys. They're real, I promise. They're just not moving. Now, I pass these thickneys every single day, and I think there's a possibility they could be nesting here. Now, I'm not completely sure, but they are monogamous. And they're solitary nesters, and what that means is they won't share their nest collectively. They won't all group together and nest as one, but they are known to nest in the same vicinity as other monogamous pairs, so they all like to be together. So several pairs may nest close together, and it's normally in sort of riverine sandbars, and we are very, very close to Vuatela Dam and the drainage line, the Mawati. And I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from where I'm sitting. I'm sure there's a few that I have not spotted. So I'm wondering if there's eggs there. Their nests are ground nests, and they're very, very simple. They're not complicated, and they're sort of mixed in with all the debris on the ground, leaves, vegetation. So it'll be very, very difficult for us to spot the eggs, and we've been trying. We've been sitting here trying to see if there are any eggs. And because they're monogamous, apparently both the male and the female contribute to making this sort of nest scrape out of the ground, close to water. And of course, we're really close to water right now. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure why all these thickneys are together in one area, and they're here every single day. Every day I drive past, the thickneys are here. Aren't they gorgeous? They're said to roost most of the day, and they're primarily nocturnal. So that's why they're so inactive right now. They're very, very still. They're just roosting, resting, sunbathing, vitamin D, and they'll get active once that sun starts to go down. The male and female water thickness are very similar. It's almost impossible to tell them apart just by looking at them from where we are right now. And the reason you find them around water is because they feed on aquatic animals, from frogs, insects, fish, crabs, yummy, delicious aquatic delights. Okay, we're going to let these thicknies get back to whatever they're doing and head to the hyena den.
Thank you.
Well, just moved a little bit closer. Enjoying spending time with these hippo. It's really lovely to be down here at the dam. Nice cool breeze coming off the water. Let's just listen to the sound these hippo are making, the bubbles they're blowing, coupled with all the bird calls around the dam. Just notice all those oxpeckers on the hippo's back. A couple just flew away, but there's one, little red-billed oxpecker. Generally large mammals will be accompanied by them. Another interesting, nearly got dunked there. Another interesting name in Afrikaans. It's a renostervolkie, which is, oh, excuse you, directly translated as a rhino bird. The reason for that I'm going to explain as we drive on. I want to go a little bit further up ahead and have a look. See a big hippo bull down there. Renostervolkie, a rhino bird, and that's because I suppose the first people to name it noticed that they were always on rhino, and way back when people were exploring in the southern part of Africa, they were noticing a lot of rhinos. There were thousands of rhino, far more than we have today, and you can pretty much be guaranteed that where there's a rhino, there's an oxpecker. So that's why they called them a rhino bird. And here we have Mr. Crocodilian. What a lovely sighting. That is going to be an exceptional crocodile sighting. Just going to stop here so we don't get too close. I don't want to startle it. He's sunning itself there on the bank. We are right down here at Chitwa Dam. And if you're hearing a noise, they're obviously busy doing something at the back there. Perhaps fixing the roads with the tractor. Oh, nice. What can we have there? Little leghorn. Leghorn, the colloquial term. Monitor, its proper term, is a water monitor, similar to the rock monitor. Well spotted, dear. I'll have my binoculars here and have a bit of a closer look. Not very easy to the untrained eye to tell the difference between a water monitor and a rock monitor. Let me see if I can get my book out and show you a comparison. First thing you notice is, or to me at least, water monitors always appear a little bit more yellow. They are a bit smaller. I suppose the fact that it's on an island doesn't give away. Pull it up in the book maybe on our next segment.
This male leopard has actually shifted his carcass a little bit. He's moved it maybe a metre and a half onto a really nice big branch that goes out towards the river, and it seems like he's taking a rest from feeding for now. He's got his head down. It looks like his head is facing away from us, looking down, and he's not really fed on the carcass for the last 5 minutes or so. He did, I mean, after that feeding, he's been feeding for maybe about 25 minutes or so. It did look like he had got lots of meat in his stomach, so that stomach started to become quite nice and big. And I'm sure he'll just take it easy from now, and eventually you might find he could come down from the tree and head back towards that sandy bank where he's been enjoying lying down for the last couple of days, and just give his stomach a chance to digest all of that food before he comes back up and feeds. And I mean, 2 days ago I thought that he would have finished the carcass and moved on, and so I'm very surprised that after 4 days he's still here and has still got that amount of meat left on the carcass, which means that he could, if he continues this behavior, he could be here for until tomorrow, which is almost 5-6 days that he's been on this carcass. So, Veronica, leopards on the odd occasion will use a tree more than once, but I don't think it happens very often. I think there's so many different trees within their territory that they can utilize. They don't necessarily need to come back to the same tree. You might find that they'll climb similar species more regularly. So that's species that have got nice soft bark that they can dig their claws into without any thorns, and with nice horizontal branches that they can lie in. So a Natal mahogany with so much shade, which is this tree, is perfect. And then another classic leopard tree is a marula tree. And that's probably the most common tree that you see leopards up, I would say. One of the most, yeah, at least. There's a nice big tree that is called a leadwood. That bark is so hard that the leopard won't get its claws into it, so they hardly ever climb a leadwood.
The way we actually, by watching where the birds are going out and then walking, so many kilometers. To give you an idea, is that and the fact that, okay, so you don't want to disturb a nest in any way at all. You need to, sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, there we go. Sorry, our comms is really bad at the moment. Anyway, in a nutshell, you really want to be sitting down in a blind far away from that nest, so there's zero disturbance on it. So this screen does really, really well. It's exactly 50 meters from where the nest is, and the ducks didn't pick us up at all, unless they just ignored us, but I don't think so, because around a nesting site there would have been a lot of alarm calls, that kind of stuff, which there wasn't. So that was a really, really nice screen. And also the fact that we were using it in the afternoon with the setting sun behind, it really helps camouflage it, makes it very, very difficult for them to see you inside there. The other thing, if you are going to be looking to do a stakeout at a nest for an animal or of a bird or something else, don't touch the vegetation at all. In other words, don't disturb anything around the nest site. They choose these nest sites incredibly carefully for a very, very good reason, because they want them to remain as cryptic and as camouflaged as possible. So we did no change-ups here whatsoever. We made that a nice safe distance away so that there was no disturbance. Then around the nest site itself, we didn't touch this at all. And I'll show you why. How cool is this? Okay, so remember we were sitting up there and looking back towards this mound of sand. This is what we spent, there's jackal tracks, but this is what we spent a lot of time looking at. And I'm actually going to go around from the other side, and Darby's going to come around behind me on this end of here, just so you can actually get a real feel for the nest. And somewhere on me I actually have a headlamp as well. So typically they use aardvark burrows, and I think that's what threw us off to begin with, is we were all looking for aardvark burrows, but it wasn't. It's actually in a spring air burrow. To my knowledge, it's only the second or third record ever of this species using a spring air burrow. Maybe it's a lot more common than we think. Anyway, so this is the burrow over here that they've been coming in and out of, and there's no fresh tracks here anymore, just because that's now been a full week. But I just actually wanted to have a look inside there to see if there's any way of seeing what was going on in there. You actually can't see very far inside there. I don't know if you can get down there, Davy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. So that tunnel, I'm going to put my hand there. You can see that's the size. So let's say it's about 15 centimeters across, about 20 centimeters high, and that was absolutely adequate for that duck. So that tunnel goes way back inside there. How awesome is that, eh? To think that entire Shelby family, okay, minus the dad, he doesn't come down to the nest apparently at all. The female does all of this. She lays the nest, lays the eggs, obviously, as opposed to the male, incubates them by herself, looks after them, but then both parents take them out down to the water. So Davy and I, we're going to actually try and work out how long it took them to walk from the nest down to the dam. So this nest is exactly 800 meters from here to the dam. So these little ducklings walk for 800 meters on those tiny, short, little webbed feet of theirs through this. In fact, Davy, if you put the camera low down, as low as you can on the ground, and you give like a duckling's eye perspective of this terrain, that's probably kind of like what they were seeing there. So the field of view wasn't exactly huge when they were walking around, but they'd walk all the way from here down to the dam through, as we know, wildcat-infested areas, snakes, birds of prey, you name it. But they did it. So that is a shell duck nest, everyone. Vilek has asked, what other birds use camouflage to hide from predators? In fact, most birds use camouflage in some form or another to hide from predators. And again, I suppose it depends. Nests are always very, very cryptically hidden. I mean, the nests, that's like the whole key around it, is you want your nest to be as well hidden as possible. The big thing that comes out, some people ask, well, what about something like a lilac-breasted roller, or a crimson-breasted shrike, or a golden-breasted bunting, where you've got like these startlingly bright birds? What about them? But you often find that those birds really want to be seen by other territorial ones, and they've got offsets against being eaten. Not always. If you are going to be a brilliantly coloured bird sitting out on the top of a tree, you're probably going to assume that you're going to get nailed at some point. But yeah, these nests are always really, really camouflaged. So I'm just super, super chuffed that you could actually all see this nest. Unfortunately, we can't get further down there But wow, it is so tempting. But I think what we know about it already is they're using a spring air burrow, which is brilliant. It is slap bang within the mid-range of the distance away from water that the accepted literature states. It says anything from 50 meters to 1.7 kilometers away from water. So this is 800 meters. And the number of ducklings was also spot on. So all good. And I'm glad you all saw that. So cool.
Rex, do you see us up here? Sorry, I was just guiding Rex into the sighting because we have managed to locate the Nkuhumas. Now, it's not been easy. We knew they were on the property, but it was not easy, and I'm going to possibly show you how it's not easy. Craig, if we could just have a quick glance at my current situation. It's really not ideal. Yes, it's not very comfortable and it's not ideal, but I'm going to sit here, of course, because we get the views of the beautiful Nkuhuma Pride. Now, I have not done a count. I can see lots of cubs, lots of bums, lots of bodies, lots of tawny bellies, but I don't know who exactly is here and who is not here. I can see ears twitching way in the distance as well. So I don't know if we've got males. I don't know how many lionesses we have, but we'll get there. What a drive it has been already. The Nkuhumas have been on the property for about 4 days now. Maybe longer, actually. And it's funny that this is happening because last winter they were said to be, big yawn. That was half-hearted. It was. Last winter they were around Djuma almost all the time, and then as summer approached, they started their move down south, pushing down south to the sort of Londolozi, Malamala area. And it's funny that it's winter again and they're spending a lot of time on Djuma. I just wonder if there's possibly a relationship there. But either way, it's great to see them. I just got asked on the radio if it looks like they've had a meal, and it's really tough to tell from this angle. I am at one with the Combritum. It's a COWIE bush. I didn't even see what tree it is that I am part of. It's a COWIE. So we will try to reposition. They're up on the embankment of the drainage line. Ellie's everywhere upset. I wonder if they could possibly smell the lions earlier. They've got very good sense of smell. I touched on that earlier. And they would probably be able to smell a whole pride of lions. And it would upset them. They would react. Elephants are very reactive. It's all about protecting the herd, protecting the young ones. Lions absolutely would hunt a elephant calf, a young elephant, if they had the chance. And that's why it's important. Adult elephants are always alert and always ready to rally round and protect the young. They've positioned themselves in the perfect spots. It's really shaded here and it's not too far from water. Wouldn't it be fantastic if they went to Vuvuzela Dam to drink? I can see amber eyes. We saw amber eyes when we first approached, and I can see another lioness. Very unhappy elephants. I think think a lot of vehicles are wanting to see the Nkuhuma, so we may have to leave in a bit, but we'll definitely come back. Once it gets cooler, that's when these lions get active. George, you're asking about genetics enabling the survival of mange. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Normally with mange, we've discussed quite regularly, due to the Nkuhuma situation, it's a parasitic mite. And humans can also be affected by this mite. But when it comes to lions, it weakens them. So it's not that genetics would play a part. It's more in the fact that their immune system eventually becomes very, very weak. And the animal will lose hair. They can become very, very dehydrated through the whole process. And it can lead to death. But ultimately, when you see the hair loss, that's from an allergic reaction to the mite. So the mite's buried into the hair follicle, which doesn't sound so pleasant, and an allergic reaction happens. Sorry if you keep hearing noises, I keep banging my head into this branch. And it suppresses the immune system. So that's what encourages or causes the animal to become very, very weak and leaves it unable to fight infection. So I'm not sure that in this sort of situation, genetics would play a part. I hope that's what you were referring to, George. And because there's so much water around right now, and the Nkuhumas are getting a lot of food. Now, if you think water is life, and it's winter, so the water around, the dams are still very, very full, means that the vegetation is still very lush. There's lots of vegetation around for browsers and grazers, mostly browsers though, and therefore the prey that the lions will eat will be much healthier. They will have high levels of nutrition, and therefore when the lions eat the herbivores, the carnivores eat the herbivores, it benefits them to become much stronger as well. So mange is essentially, an immunosuppressant. Really, it's all to do with the immune system. So I'm going to sit here embedded in my guari bush, and hopefully we'll see some activities from these lions soon.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
So we have got a bird that we don't really see too often running along the sand of the riverbed. And I thought it might be an opportunity for some of the viewers to try and see if they could identify it for us. And it's quite far away, so we might not see it in detail. But if we look at what it looks like, it's got very pale underside. And if you can see the breast, it's streaky all the way down with a very grey back. And so that might be some nice clues for the viewers to tell us. And there's two of them, so there's a pair of them that are running around the banks. And it looks like they're moving from little grassy patch to grassy patch, looking for little insects and things to nibble on. So when they fly, it's also sometimes quite a good giveaway, because when they open up their wings, they've got these pale little windows that are a yellowy orange color. I don't see it anymore, unfortunately. Okay, in the grass somewhere there. Oh, there we go. It's just moved off to the right a little bit. So Jamie, pretty close. There is a lark that we find in this area called a dusky lark, which looks very, very, very similar. The only difference is the size a little bit, and I guess the color on the windows, and the streaking doesn't go all the way down. Veronica, blackwing, lapwing, not so much. Close, but right colors, but just not quite good enough. So let me just show you quickly. The bird that we saw was a a ground scraper thrush at least. And this is it over here. So it's a bird that's not particularly common or uncommon. Yeah, Tracy, well done. You got it perfectly right. It is a ground scraper thrush. And so, I mean, it was a very difficult view, but the streaking goes all the way down to the chest with these nice bright yellow legs with little ear coverts quite nicely marked, and then that's a nice photo of it when it's in flight. And especially if it's flying into the sun, you get to see these very pale yellow wings. So well done, Tracy. It was a little tougher one, not a tougher one, a tougher one than usual. And there's one bird that's quite common, is a lilac-breasted roller that we have over there.
Still here with our crocodilian. Just really enjoying Chitwa Dam. We don't want to leave it, there's just so much going on. Hippos are snorting and thrashing about as they like to do. Crocodiles just chilling there in the sun, getting the last rays of warmth before nightfall. And our water monitors are still there. We did see a second water monitor. I don't see it now anymore. It's gone down below the other side, but the first one we saw was still there. Also called a legavan. I did pull up the picture in my book. I can show you, showing the difference between a water monitor and a rock monitor. I'll show you here on in the book. Quite similar, these two, rock monitors and water monitors. The main difference is rock monitor obviously not so aquatic and also very robust. They appear to be stockier, a slightly shorter tail. And quite aggressive. They can really whip that tail and give a nasty bite if you come too close, as I found out more than once as a child. Being a naughty boy growing up in the bush trying to catch them. And also quite the scavenger. They'll eat just about anything they can find. Carrion, even aquatic birds if they can grab them. They love eggs, even crocodiles' eggs. Even recorded eating baby crocodiles. That lovely toothy grin of the crocodile. Lisa, you've asked, do crocodiles sleep with their mouths open? I suppose they can. Hard to say when a crocodile's sleeping or just resting or just lying silently. We often see them with their mouths open on a nice hot day as they lay in the sun. It's a way of dispersing heat from their bodies. Remember, they are reptiles and they are ectothermic, opposite to endothermic, which means their metabolism is controlled by the environment. Endothermic are mammals such as us that control our body heat by our metabolism. A reptile like a crocodile needs to get in the sun if it's too cold, or get down into the cool waters if it's too warm. And keeping that mouth nice and wide allows for a better transition of heat. The ability to lie silently for a long time. Very patient animals. They'll often lie just below the water's surface with their nostrils sticking out to get a breath. And they can lie motionless like that for hours, even days, as they patiently await for an unsuspecting prey species to come down for a drink. But from their absolute silence and stillness, they will all of a sudden launch a terrifying attack. From completely tranquil to a frenzy of panic, it will snatch its prey and try and drag it back into the water. I think we are going to move on and explore the rest of Chitwa. Maybe see if we can't find a spotted cat or something of that nature over here. Let's carry on and see what we can find.
So we decided to leave Leopard Dam areas and drive on, and as we came past our camp, we heard lots of birds making noise, and we came across this little guy. This is an African barred owlet, very small predator, and it's a gorgeous little bird. And all the other birds were mobbing it, and it was very stoic, just sitting there, and they eventually got bored, as all bullies will if you ignore them. And now it's just sitting watching us. It's gorgeous. This is the resident of our eco-training camp. We see him, or it, almost every single day. Oh, look at that. Fluffing itself up. There's a bit of a breeze that just came through. It looks like it's actually going to fall asleep. You see that? How the eyelids have closed. It's been bothered by the birds for a while now, and now it's settling down so it can have a bit of a snooze. Remember, these birds are mostly nocturnal, but they can also be active crepuscularly, which just means in the early evening and in the early morning as the sunlight changes. Oh, I can hear a different type of owlet calling in the background, a pearl spotted owlet. We've got both types here, and we've even got Scops owl that lives in the camp, as well as southern white-faced owls. All the small owls live right here around our camp along this drainage line in the waterhole. But this little thing will mostly eat insects. Occasionally it will catch rodents, of which often around bush camps there are many, from squirrels to gerbils and shrews, and it will catch a whole host of all of them. Very cute little bird, and you see how it focuses every now and again on movement, and they've got great binocular vision. their big eyes right in the front of their heads, meaning they can really judge distances very well. And sometimes you'll even see them move their head in a circular motion in order to very finely tune their hearing and their sight to whatever it is that's moving. It's awesome to see it. This one here has become so accustomed to people that it will stay very still, and sometimes we have students who don't notice it, who walk literally within a meter or two of this bird, and it just sits quietly, and as long as the person doesn't stop right next to it, it doesn't worry. If you were to stop next to this bird, and then it realizes it's been spotted, and then it will fly away, but as long as it thinks it's camouflaged, it will stay still. And you can see that camouflage is pretty good. The belly is quite white, but you can imagine you can see the bark on that tree. It's got white scales, and there's dark leaves, and the brown of its back looks like the bark. So it's very well camouflaged if it stays very, very still. Sometimes it'll even turn its body to face away from you, and then the dark back blends it perfectly to the trees and the bushes along this drainage line. In fact, there's a whole family of them. I shouldn't say family, it's probably 4 individuals who literally sit above my tent and make a whole lot of noise most nights as they fight, because they are quite territorial, these little birds. So they will call and fight over little patches. Their territories are not huge, so they do need to look after them. Warren, I'm not sure if they're more active in summer or winter. To be honest, I've seen them a lot in the winter time, and I'm not sure if that's because the cooler temperatures mean they can be active during the daytime, because there's certainly not as much insect activity. But the ground is becoming more open, and all the seeds are drying up in the grasses, so there's lots of rodent activity at this time of year. The explosion happens when it's wet, but as it dries, there are lots of rodents around, and the cover is disappearing. So these owls can hunt much, much more successfully. So perhaps we see them more often in the winter, because it's not as many much vegetation blocking everything, allowing us to see them, and because their food also doesn't have the cover, so they can hunt better. But in the summertime, I think they're probably just as active, just more often in the night. Oh, winking at us. Hey, the double wink. We have obviously found grace with this owlet. Oh, never mind. It was pooping. It was just struggling. Megan, it was looking at us funny, but I'm sure it was working some things out, so to speak. But yes, it does have this intense gaze when it looks at us. Look at that. It kind of looks angry. Actually, Seb said that when we first arrived. It was looking a little bit grumpy. I'm sure it was grumpy because it was being bothered by those other birds. There were lots of birds. There was a drongo. There were some other small birds like firefinches. And there might have been a southern black flycatcher as well that was swooping around and causing all sorts of noise to try and scare this owlet off. Now, the reason they do that, because the owlet wouldn't really hunt the adult birds. They've got also sharp claws and beaks that can peck this little owlet, but it would maybe catch their chicks. So they would not want a predator to be nearby. I mean, you even see it with elephants. Elephants will chase away a leopard, even though a leopard is absolutely no threat to an elephant, but they just don't like predators around, just like the other birds. Ooh, Angie, they've got a very cute call. If I could imitate it, it sounds like if you whistle inwards and then sort of make a tremulous. So if I go like that. I could play it on my phone, but I don't want to disturb this owlet because they are, as I said, fiercely territorial. So if I played it on my phone, you can see this owl's trying to sleep. They don't get a lot of chance to sleep because because during the day they get bothered by all these other birds. So if I play the call, it might end up thinking that there's a rival around and then spend a lot of energy and time chasing back and forth after the rival barred owlet. So I won't play the call for you right now, but maybe when I'm not so close to one at some point, a bit further away, and they're more active, then I would definitely play the call so that you could hear it. If I played it right now, it would probably fly off, and that would make me a bit sad. Especially since it's so close to us. It's awesome. So I've actually seen this bird. It was very cool. It was a bit of a windy, cold day, and this bird was sitting on an exposed branch, just staring at the water, and it looked like it was very pensive. And I was thinking, oh, man, it's such a cold day. I just wish everything would, and it was just, everything just seemed perfect for it just to be a brooding owlet staring at the water. I found it very funny. I had to take a photograph. And then I was making all these comments as I was taking this little video. And I made one comment about it looking, you know, like it was sulking. And it just did this very slow head turn and looked at me. And I just cracked up laughing. It was the funniest thing ever. It really was listening to me. Koala Bear is asking a very interesting question about how far do the eyes go back into the head. I'm not sure if I understand the question exactly, but certainly these are very big eyes. Owlets and all the owls have big eyes because they do hunt at night and they use their vision. As you can see there, the pupil has gotten very large on this owlet, so it means it's trying to let as much light in as possible. It might be trying to look at something in the grass. I don't know if you've ever had a cat as a pet. They do this just before they have this little crazy phase. So yeah, their eyes are very big and round. So very, very large eyes. They're not very deep set in its head though. As you can see, the beak sort of extends out a little bit. They haven't got the very flat face of some of the other owls, but they definitely have a less of a elongated face than most birds. Awesome. Love these little owlets. Oh, good night.
Look at what we're witnessing here. These lions are watching a whole herd of elephants moving by them from probably about 100 meters away. And so far it looks like the elephants have no idea that the lions are here. And the majority of the sub-adult cubs have just picked up their heads and they're watching quite intently. And if you look in the distance with the elephants moving around, there's a very small one there that I'm sure they're probably focusing most of their attention at. I'm sure the majority of them are just watching and waiting to see what will happen. These lions have been chased around by elephants a lot in their lifetime, and so they're probably just wanting to make sure that if the elephants come towards them, they'll have some sort of head start and not get surprised by a whole herd of stampeding elephants. It does seem like the youngsters of the elephant herd are quite playful. There's a very, very small one and a slightly bigger one that are following each other around, and they're running back and forth. And these elephants are so comfortable in their own skin that they don't really feel threatened by too many things. And so they don't need to be alert. Phoenix, a young boisterous elephant will, especially if it's a male, will definitely harass these lions. If it's a young male elephant, a lot of the time, they come in with a load of confidence, and as soon as they realize that they've got the upper hand, they will take advantage of it and they'll start chasing these lions around. That one lion is actually just sat up. And that's because the youngest elephant is slowly making its way here. It's still at a very, very long distance away. Looks like it's going towards its mother. But the wind is blowing from the lions straight to us, which means that the elephants have got no chance of smelling them. These lions are in the shade, not moving around too much. And so these elephants are more focused on what's going on in front of them, looking for things to feed. And if it was the other way, if the wind was blowing from us to the elephants would have picked up the scent of the lions and their behavior would be completely different. That young one was just chasing, I don't know what it was, it might have been a little bird in the ground or something. This is very, very similar to the scene that we had yesterday with the elephants in the riverbed and the lions on the bank looking in. And from yesterday afternoon to where they are now, they've hardly moved. The interesting thing, though, is that there seems to be half of the pride here. The other half has gone in a different direction, so they split up sometime during the night. And so the reason why we decided to come here nice and early is to see if they weren't going to try and find the rest of the pride. The easiest and most effective way to do that is by calling. And I would really love to show you one more time the pride calling around us again in the evening.
What cool interaction that you had there. Very, very cool. Far more chilled here at Chitwa, still with our crocodile and water monitor and all the birds around the shore. Just thoroughly enjoying a peaceful afternoon down at Chitwa Dam. Little blacksmith lapwing there. Almost always found around bodies of water in South Africa and Southern Africa. Lilac Lola, you've asked how many crocodiles will live in a waterhole together. That depends very much on the size of the water and the body of water. In a waterhole that's small, you might only find one. In a larger body of water, then they will obviously have a carrying capacity of whatever that body of water can hold. It comes down to space and food availability. And of course in our large rivers in Africa, many more. When you get onto, for example, the Okavango Delta in Botswana, a large river, an aquatic system that flows through the country there. If you go at night on a boat with a spotlight and you shine your light, you just see eyes everywhere. There are tons of crocodiles. Those are obviously large river systems with plenty of food. So the carrying capacity of the body of water is quite high. Down here in Chitwa Dam, I'm not sure how many crocodiles there are here. It could very easily be quite a few. But I've only seen this one. Some waterbuck, or one waterbuck on the other side there, and also a hippo out, getting an early start to the evening's grazing. Often notice, just thinking about this crocodile again, that I see them sunbathing a lot more in the winter months than in the summer. Just something I've only thought about now. Perhaps it's because the water is so much cooler and having to self-regulate their body temperatures, they spend a lot more time in the sun during the winter. Mr. Black Dragon, you've asked, will any other predators attempt to hunt crocodile? And they will. There have been, I've seen videos of leopard grabbing, biting and killing younger crocodiles. first one that comes to mind. They are good meat, and if a predator that's opportunistic can get an opportunity, they will. Even seen videos of lion prides attacking large crocodile. Never seen it myself, but many accounts of other predators going for crocodile. But don't forget, these are an apex predator of our water systems and are not to be taken lightly.
The elephants have not stopped coming. They keep crossing this nice open clearing, heading down to what we think is, or the direction that they're heading is straight towards a waterhole. So they must be going to try and get an afternoon drink. And these lions have seemed to take their attention away from the elephants, and they're spending a lot more time grooming themselves, which is really, really exciting. It's still very early on. I mean, we've got another hour and maybe 10 minutes or so before it gets dark, but they're already starting to show signs. And there's just some really nice young elephants in the background that are putting on a show for us. So not far away at all. I mean, those lions have now realized that the elephants have got no idea that they're there, so they don't really feel too threatened by them. And so they're happy to just go back to what they're doing and just start the waking up process. So there's a few that are still very, very relaxed and sleeping. Right in the center of frame is that one with its leg up. But then that one next to it, the one with a lot of hair around his ears and down towards his chest, is one of the subadult males. And he's been one of the most active lions so far. So I think about a week ago, there was a really cool sighting at Phinda where a group of subadults who were probably around about the same age as us were playing around with some rhinos. And they were just basically just testing out their stalking skills and playing with the rhinos. I've never quite seen it happen with elephants before. So they might get up and express a bit of interest, but the females react quite negatively to lions, and so the adult elephants will spend a lot of time chasing them off. So it seems like they are starting to wake up a lot more now, these lions. With the elephants crossing in the background again. So I wonder what led to the split up of this pride last night. We think there are about 7 or 8 individuals here, which means that 10 or 11 of them aren't here. So they must have moved off in a slightly different direction. And so there's a group of 2 adult females with a young male, so that's 3 adults, and then about, I think, 4 cubs that are here. It could be, I mean, there's one female that we noticed has got a limp, and she's had a limp for the last week on her front left leg. So maybe she just wasn't willing to move around too much. And so her cub stayed behind, and so did one of the adult females with her. It's really cool to see those tails flicking every now and again. And apart from that white lion who's so blatantly obvious in this long grass, the rest of them are perfectly camouflage. And so that little flick is sometimes all that we see of these lions. That white lion is now on his back. And I think he's right next to one of his brothers. And if you look on his leg, his back leg, there's almost looks like a wound. And that's a wound that he's had for quite some time. This lighting is just amazing, and it's only going to get better and better from here. So Lara Jane, that's quite a good question. You know, if this male mates with a white female, then they will have white cubs. If he mates with a tawny female who doesn't carry the recessive gene of the white lions, then there's no chance of him having young white lion cubs. But if he mates with a female tawny lion that does have the gene, then there's a good chance, there's a 25% chance of them having white cubs together. And so, that one's father and the mother are both tawny lions. But both of them have got the white lion gene. And so there was a 25% chance that he was white, and he came out white, which is really special. And just a complete anomaly in nature. I mean, white is the exact color you don't want to be in the bush. It's nothing kind of blends in with it. It stands out, and it would be very difficult for him to survive and hunt by himself. So luckily he's got really experienced mothers and aunties to carry him and help him survive up until the age he's looking to become independent, which will be probably within the next year and a half or two. And the difference between him and the young male that we have, who's currently going through that same process, is that he's got two other brothers. And so the three of them will stick together once they get chased away from the pride. And so if he blotches the hunting and he gets spotted, then hopefully his two other brothers will help carry him. And he'll eventually, one day, hopefully take over a territory of his own. But it's amazing that this white lion gene, the first time that it was properly recorded was in the 1930s within this region. And since then there's been sporadic sightings. There was a long period, I think, from the 1970s right up until the early 2000s, where there was no white lions that were spotted. And then in the early to mid 2000s, there was a white lion that was born in this Timavati region of the Kruger National Park. And since then, it's, if not every year, every second or third year, that different prides have given birth to white lions. And this is the first time since 2010, since we've been following this pride of lions moving through Ngala, that they've given birth to cubs that have survived. In 2018, actually, there were a couple of females that gave birth to cubs, but that was right at the time where the previous dominant males got chased away by the current dominant males. And so, unfortunately, those cubs, who I think there was 3 of them that were born into that litter, got killed before they left the den site.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
just been looking for the remains of that meerkat with no huge amount of success. But that bush clump directly behind me over there, that's where that wildcat took that meerkat to after catching it over here. So that's where we saw it run into over there. So I was just curious to see if we could see what was left of it. 12 hours later or 24 hours later, whatever it is, that thing is going to be absolutely finished. But it would have been interesting just to see what skeletal remains there were. It could be quite interesting to show you that. But anyway, the head is still here, and it's covered in ants. So, do you want to see that? Yeah, all right. That was a huge yes from everyone. Okay. Actually, there's not that many ants on it. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Not for sensitive viewers. Dun, 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 dun. Oh yeah. Do I need to say anything? that's, this meerkat was having a bad hair day. But, yeah, you. Anyway, that's a meerkat head. Yeah, I know. He's looking a little bit the worse for wear. But I'm going to go put him right back where I got him so the ants can carry on having their lunch. Sure. All right. That's the sum total of my animals for this afternoon, apart from the birds. Yeah, that's a sign of a good guide. Huh? Oh, look, I found a meerkat head. I couldn't find a meerkat. Bex has asked, why hasn't the tongue been eaten? It will get eaten, it just hasn't been eaten yet. So over time, those little ants that are on it, they're going to gobble that thing up completely. There's literally just going to be a couple of bones left. And even a jackal that pops past the night, if a jackal finds that, it's going to snaffle it. It's going to eat it very, very quickly, tongue and all. So, yeah, that's an untimely demise of one of our meerkats. But these things happen. It's the outdoors. You know, you expect these things to happen. So.
That one line that's got its head up is one of the females of this group. And now she's got it down. That is classic commentator's curse. But it's cool to see that they're starting to show slightly more sign. I mean, we've seen them grooming and getting up and stretching. And it's a long process for lions to get up and actively move. And a lot of the reason why they decide to sleep and rest so much like this is to conserve as much energy as they possibly can. And so they'll only really move if it's beneficial to them. If they need to go for water, if they need to protect their territory and their space, if they need to go and find food, or if they're looking for the rest of the pride. And it's still quite warm, which means when the sun's out, it's slightly hotter than it will be in a couple of hours. And so just waiting for that time to move around where they don't have to worry about cooling themselves down. It's incredible. There's still elephants that are crossing in the background. There must have been maybe 25, 30 elephants that have crossed so far. And with that being a slightly smaller one, it probably means that there are more. So we could have potentially 40 elephants passing through these lines without them noticing. And so that tells me when we first got here and we saw the whole pride looking down towards those elephants, that must have been the first group of elephants that they saw. Just by looking at their behavior when we first got here to now. I mean, they were very attentive. They were looking at the elephants, probably quite concerned that if the elephants came too close, they'll get chased away. And now they're just completely relaxed around them, letting the elephants pass by. They know that they're in a comfortable spot where, if elephants aren't looking, they're not going to see them or not become aware of them. There must be a fly. And remember, I was pointing out that small little wound on that white line subadult's leg. Just see how much more his tail's moving around compared to his siblings and his aunties and mother. He's constantly swishing it from side to side. And because that wound is still open and exposed, it's attracting a lot of flies that are coming to that wound to either get moisture, maybe get a drink of blood, and potentially even lay their eggs inside that exposed flesh. And so he's needing to try and ward them off. And so that's why his tail is going so much more than what the other lions are doing. And I don't know if it's quite far in the distance, but one of my favorite birds, and definitely my favorite call, the African scops owl, is calling in one of these tall trees by the riverbed. And it's calling already, which means that tonight can only mean that it's going to be an amazing evening. And we were just talking about it a little bit earlier on. I mean, to see not only what we've seen this afternoon, but the way that the species have interacted with one another. I mean, that leopard and that hyena interaction where they were chasing each other around, where it was quite action-packed, to a whole herd of elephants crossing by these sleepy lions. And what we've seen this afternoon is something that you'll be happy with seeing once a week only. And the lighting is just getting better and better now. It's that beautiful golden winter color on the tall bank of trees behind these lions. And all we're waiting for is just one of the adult females to pick up her head, look around, and maybe just let out that slow contact call, knowing that she's looking for one of the pride members. So we are going to anchor down and just wait for that moment, and hopefully it happens sometime before the end of show this afternoon.
Oh, we are sitting now with a whole family, a whole band of mongoose who are busy having their evening session, a different band than the one we had the other day, and come to join them is a hornbill. So this hornbill is obviously very annoyed that his helpers, his food disturbers, have stopped working, and now it's kind of digging around this termite mound. We've often found hornbills sit in the trees and bushes above the mongoose in order to catch any insects that get disturbed. Now the mongoose are settling down. The hornbill is probably also going to settle down. It's just digging around this termite mound. So the mongoose can sometimes live in termite mounds that are active. Some of these termite mounds... Oh, there's a red-crested corehound making a call next to us. I think it's going to do its display. Oh, if only we could get that on film, that would be so cool. Anyway, this termite mound that the monkeys are on is probably active, and it's low to the ground with big holes, and sometimes if you put your hands above those holes, you can feel warm air coming out, and that is probably what the mongoose use in winter to keep themselves nice and warm. As you can see them, there's a big pile of them all grooming together. Man, I'd love to be in that pile. I wonder what it must feel like. You know, I had a friend who had a squirrel that he rescued that fell out of a thatched roof, And the squirrel used to, groom us as well. Would get into our beards and scratch around. It was so nice, actually. But I imagine having 10 squirrels must be like having these 10 mongoose grooming around. Oh, look, it's watching us. And so these mongoose are not close to where we normally drive. We're just testing out some new areas and seeing what's about. And so I haven't really seen this group of mongoose before, but they are quite comfortable with our presence. We're not so close to them, but it's awesome to see that they're all not hiding away from us. We were talking about at Seb and I if there were any banded mongoose here. And I said I hadn't really seen too many, and then literally a few minutes after we said that, a few ran across the road. But they're always so shy, the banded mongoose. They're much larger, and I feel like they could be much better at protecting themselves, but they seem much more shy than the dwarf mongoose. I wonder why that is. Maybe because it's not so easy for them to hide. I'm not sure. I'm cleaning all those hard-to-reach places. This is called allo grooming. So generally speaking, one will groom the other for an equal amount of time. And that also helps to build social bonds. It keeps them clean also. But yeah, if you don't groom back what you get, you won't get groomed anymore. Oh, lifting the arm up. Got to get right underneath. Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you guys. Carry on. Do your thing. Very, very cute. I mean, have you ever had a cat as a pet? And they stretch their legs out and scratch themselves. It looks just like that. Mongoose are not anywhere near related to cats, though. Unfortunately, they are very different. They're in a group of their own. So cats are felines and dogs are canids. These little things are completely separate. They're in the Viverridae family. And they are usually able to squirt foul-smelling liquids if they are disturbed. They also, they do a lot of something called anal pasting, which is where they evert a little pouch in their colon or in the anal cavity, and they're able to paste, which leaves a scent, so that they can identify each other and their territory. And so, if you have any of them living close to your house, then they will be. If they're living near your house, they will be pasting everywhere, so it might be a little bit stinky. Please don't forget to send your questions in. We love all of your questions to #WildEarth on Twitter or @FC on any other platforms. And if there are any kids still watching, please send your questions into kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. The last light has faded off these mongoose. I'm sure very shortly they're going to be going into their termite mound to hide, because it's going to start getting pretty chilly. I know Seb and I have already started to put layers on. Or actually Seb has. I haven't yet, but I'm about to, because it's actually pretty chilly. So I think these mongoose are just finishing their last cleaning sessions before they go and hide in these hopefully fairly warm termite mound chimneys. As I mentioned before, if you put your hands above these early morning, you'll feel warm air coming out of those termite chimneys. And that's because the termites have collected dead plant material. They can't digest it themselves. And they have these fungus gardens underneath the ground. And as this grass material ferments and gets broken down, it creates metabolic heat. And that heat, it's the same like if you ever have a compost heap in your garden. When you, in winter, if you dig a big hole in your compost heap, you'll see steam coming out of it. That's how warm it gets. So it's just like that underground, so the termites can regulate the temperature inside the termite mounds. So these dwarf mongoose will stay in these chimneys if there are any side cavities, and that's where they'll stay if it's still an active termite mound. Minamu has asked, what kind of skin does a mongoose have? That's a very interesting question. I'm sure it's not so dissimilar to like a cat, I suppose. Quite soft, I'm sure. The fur is probably quite bristly and hard. I don't think that the fur will be as soft as a cat's fur, because they have to dig around and they live underground. And if the fur was very thick and soft, it would get full of dirt and dust, and it would be very, very difficult to keep it clean. So having that coarse fur means that they can move around in this undergrowth and push through the grasses and twigs and underground without getting it too caught in them. That's also why they have these tiny ears, as you can see. these tiny ears mean that they can move around in this undergrowth without getting them full of seeds and dirt, and also underground in these tunnels. Well, they seem to be melting off now. They're actually moving off away from the termite mound. That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. Nicola, I don't know if we do get golden mongoose here. We get a number of different types of mongoose. Unless, is that one pasting or just having a poop? It looks like quite a small one. I think it was just having a poop. You can't take that inside. You'll often find outside the termite mounds there'll be piles of it. They leave a little midden. It's easy to identify when they use it. So, Nicola, just to answer your question a bit more fully, we get dwarf mongoose, banded mongoose, white-tailed mongoose, and slender mongoose. Those are the ones we get commonly. I don't think we get golden mongoose, unless it's a name I'm not familiar with.
Well, Tia and I just pulled up here to where my kahuma's killed a buffalo the other night. And I'm just having a little walk around to see if I can find any of the leftovers. And as suspected, barely anything. Just the skull and a couple little bones lying around. Not even a leg bone or pelvis. It's quite amazing how the bush just gets rid of everything. The hyenas will rip it apart and drag it all over the show as they wrestle and tussle amongst each other for scraps. This is literally all there is. And a slightly chewed up rib bone. You can actually see, if I hold it here steady over this buffalo skull, all that marrow still on the inside that they were going for. And that is about it. That's all she wrote. The rest of it has all been pulled apart. It looks kind of gruesome, but it is interesting nonetheless. You pick it up and look at what's left. Very little. Pretty much everything's been eaten out. The maggots are in here now. If I turn it, you might see all these insects. Can you see that tears are too dark? Making short work of the leftover moisture and protein. Getting the last bits of brain. The bush really doesn't waste anything. I'm going to turn this skull again so you can see it from the front. This was a good specimen for the lions to take down. He's an old bull. He's seen a lot in his life, I'm sure. If you look at his horns, nice and worn down. Look at this huge boss on the top. They are really quite wide. They indicate a good age. They close together in the center, whereas the younger bull would still be soft in the middle here. So he has lived his life. You can even see some mud and chips out of his horns. Pieces of tree bark where he might have bashed against trees and done whatever buffalo do best. And what's amazing to me is, yeah, he's lived his life. You know, he might have been 30 or 40, who knows how old he was. But eventually he met his end. But instead of going to waste, he fed the nkuhumas. So, circle of life out here in the bush. Chelsea, you've asked, what are the rivets in the boss? And I assume that you're pointing at these guys. This is the boss, forming part of the horn. And you say rivets, if I heard that correctly. I assume you're talking about these kind of dimples. And that is just wear and tear. That's an old buffalo bull who's been through a lot. These horns aren't indestructible. They are keratin, so very similar to what your fingernail is made out of. And it's not super hard. It's not rock, so it can be damaged and pulled apart. So I guess those are the formations that you're seeing that have created those textures in the boss. Quite amazing, hey? Nothing left. Literally, there was an entire buffalo carcass here. It happened just over there on the other side of the vehicle. And all that's left is the skull and a bit of the spine. HV or HB, I'm not sure I got that right. You asked how heavy is the skull? Well, I could compare it to something. It is quite heavy. I'd say about maybe 30 kilograms. But remember, that's what, about 60 pounds, 65 pounds. I suppose it is a bit heavier than it would be dried out though, because it's still got the brain matter inside and the spinal column is still attached. So nonetheless, very interesting to come see the after effects of the Nkuhuma's hungry dinner time snack.
We are back with the Nkuhuma Pride, but we just wanted to share a stunning view of the moon with you all. You know I love my trusty moon app. And according to this app, it's 95.5% full, waxing gibbous phase. So it's not classified as full moon yet, but tomorrow, apparently, it will be. Isn't that just stunning? And I have a funny feeling the Nkuhumas are going to hunt tonight. They're hungry. It's full moon. There'll be a lot of ambient light around. There's zebra everywhere. I haven't seen buffalo today. But I wonder if tonight will be the night. And we're really not far away from the dam cam. So all you eagle-eyed dam cam viewers, please keep an eye out and let's see what happens with the Nkuhumas tonight. I'm not stuck in a tree this time, which is delightful. We are positioned in a very normal fashion. No quarry bush. Just me, which is fabulous. And these guys are still snoozing. I really thought they would be up by now. But we've managed to get a spot back at this sighting. The cubs are always awake before the adults. Full of energy, full of beans. It's the lionesses that are the sleepyheads. And all we want to do when they wake up is rough and tumble. It's like a domino sequence. As soon as one stands up, they all do. As soon as one yawns, they all do. As soon as one does a pee, they all do. So hopefully soon we will see some activity from these lions.
Okay, you're going to see something's going to cross the road now. Unfortunately, we missed it, the adult. So I'm a bit bleak about that, as you may hear. But these things happen. There you go. What a terrible sighting. That was not one of my finest moments at all, unfortunately. That was a baby steenbok, so I was really excited about it. But we had the adult and the mom on the right over there, and then just as they were coming to us, the mom just cruised across the road. So the problem is there, you see a baby steenbok, but you've got no idea of the size of the animal because you've got no reference for it. But it's not often that you see the mother with the little one, so I was like, yeah, it's a baby. Anyway, what's under the bridge? We shall proceed and find. We're going to go look. Davy said he saw an artwolf with little babies just up the road over here, and he reckons we should go there because he says he's definitely going to get artwolf first. Which I'm happy to go with that. I don't know about any of you, but I am. So yes, it's a gorgeous afternoon out here. Another tough day in Africa. But we're gonna try actually get another shot of a sighting of an African wildcat. So it's gonna be we'll try a long shot, but let's have a look.
we get to see wild cats twice in 2 days. That will be really, really special. So good luck, Dylan. I hope it comes right. We are patiently still waiting with these lions, and they seem to be doing pretty much the same that Lauren's lions are doing at the moment. But they're picking up their heads, and this lioness has now been listening in this direction for probably about maybe between 5 and 6 minutes or so. And one of the other cubs is to the left of her, is doing the same thing. And so there's hope. She is the lioness with the limp, though. And so I would imagine she wouldn't want to walk around too much. This lion looking around is one that I can recognize off the bat, because it seems to have these dark chocolate eyes, whereas the rest of those subadults have got much lighter, more golden colored eyes. This is when I'd love to just be able to switch over to what a lion can sense for a while, just to know what's interesting, what's caught their attention. Because they're both looking in exactly the same direction, and we've looked and looked, we can't see anything. All of the elephants now have crossed, so it's probably not elephants. But they must be hearing something, because we can't for the life of us see anything in the direction that they're looking. I suppose that the majority of the wind is blowing from, now that we've changed position, from us onto them, and so they could also be smelling, so maybe hearing and smelling something up ahead. Yeah, Layla, she's got very piercing eyes, and there's nothing like the stare of an old, experienced lioness. And just look at her facial features. She's got some scars that I'm sure can tell some pretty decent stories. And there's a yawn. Awesome. And another big stretch. And so, lots and lots of scars. You can just see above her left eye, just below her ear, there's a couple of scars over there. Look at the color of her teeth, almost an orangey color. And just almost looks like she's starting to lose color in her face. Around the nozzles, very, very white. And we've got the first one up and moving. See, so she's had that limp, and it hasn't really changed. It hasn't gotten worse, and it doesn't look like it's gotten too much better in the last couple of days. But she's up and heading straight to the direction that she was looking a little bit earlier on. And just by the way that she's behaving, she's stopped again after moving about 5 meters, where she's got some good cover behind those bushes, listening, dead still. So she might be interested in investigating whatever she sensed up ahead. Whether it be other lions, maybe an opportunity to provide her cubs for another meal. And no reaction from the rest of the lions. Remember, she's got another adult with her, another adult female. And so the two of them would ideally like to move together. And so I'm surprised that that other one that's been resting didn't notice or hear the movement of her, and she's actually just gone and crouched on her haunches again. And that also could be just to, if you with lions all around you, it must be quite a concentrated smell. So she might have just tried to separate herself from the rest of the lions so she's got more chance of hearing or smelling whatever she's picked up ahead. And just disappeared. I mean, we might just be able to see an ear every now and again. Just see that slightly more golden color to the left of that stump, and that's one of her ears there. But fixed, not moving around. She's not pointing back to the rest of the pride. So hopefully she gets up and carries on moving, and hopefully the rest of the pride follows her.
My lions are not moving, that's for sure. Look at Purple Eye. This is Purple Eye. On her back. Legs wide open. Could not be any more comfortable, I think. But it's definitely Purple Eye. Now I can see... I think all the cubs are accounted for. I actually think it's the exact same... Oh. I love it when lions do that. I think it's the exact same females last night. I don't see any males, but that doesn't mean they're not here. They've just positioned themselves in such a tricky spot. They're right up on an embankment. Luckily, our trusty vehicles can get us here. I don't think it'll be long before they start moving. If you look, the cubs are already restless. Well, most of them. And if you think, for the cubs, this area, the Mowati, is actually their original natal grounds. Many of the cubs were actually born in the Mowati and stashed away in dens here. Sassy Cassie, I actually don't know. I would assume not. Tooth decay in humans, at least, is normally down to our diet, our high sugar diet, not taking proper care of our teeth, and we need to take care of our teeth because of exactly what we eat. Now, out here in the wild, most animals will actually be able to clean their own teeth. So when you see some animals chewing on bones, that's a way of cleaning their teeth, believe it or not. So I don't believe animals out in the wild get tooth decay. I really think it is a very much human problem. I think that's the one with the injured eye, Craig. This one here. We can just go a little bit closer. Yes, it is. It looks like the eye's getting much better. Yeah, I think that's just dry, crusty fluid. I think that's the one, and it's getting much better. I noticed it 2 days ago and I was a little bit concerned. But I think it's absolutely fine. There's a saying, like cures like, and I guess you could use that for cleaning teeth. Animals will use bone, not that teeth are made on bone, but they'll chew on that in order to clean their own teeth. And if you look at a carnivore's tooth structure, you'll see that there's gaps in between every tooth, which makes sure that nothing gets stuck there. Whereas humans, all our teeth are very closely packed together, and sometimes things can get stuck. And that's normally what ends up causing problems for us, especially tooth decay. And we have to spend hours in the dentist getting fill-ins, which I'm sure no one anywhere in the world enjoys. If any of you enjoy going to the dentist, please let me know, because I have yet to meet someone that enjoys going to the dentist. But the human diet nowadays is full of sugar and full of all the wrong things for our teeth. We've got one adult with her head up. I really hope they don't leave the property tonight. I hope that they hang around and we can have them on a kill for tomorrow. Their bellies don't look full, do they? You can see the suckle marks, but that's not a full belly. This pride is hungry. I think we're all going to start to get on the move soon. Hopefully they don't go into the drainage line and we can follow the Enkohomas and see what they're going to get up to.
A beautiful sighting of a red-crested coron, and it's actually just foraging in this late afternoon light through this very, very, very short layer of vegetation. So they're actually omnivores, so he's after insects, little grass seeds, things like that. But I'm just loving that, almost that rim light on him. Now, so these are the ones you get lots of them in the Lowveld where our colleagues are. And they're also known as suicide birds, like one of the colloquial names, because they get this beautiful display flight where they go, and then they fly up for about 20-30 meters, and then they just fold their wings and they drop straight down, and about 5-6 meters above the ground they flare their wings out and they land very, very gently. But it's quite a striking display, and it's often triggered, interestingly, by the sound of a vehicle. Not always, so it's not like, okay, you drive up there slowly and you do it, but you see it a lot of times when they do that. So I don't know. Yeah, he's making for some cover. He's getting suspicious now. He says, I don't like being stuck out here in the open with that dodgy cameraman around. And we've got another one here I'll try to show you over the coming weeks called a northern black coron. Northern black coron. Incredibly striking birds, the males. Same size, shape as this, but the feather patterning is markedly different. Just getting into a bit of cover there. Incredibly cryptically camouflaged birds. And a lot of these, so they nest on the ground. They don't actually make a nest. It's kind of what they call a shallow scrape. They lay the eggs on the ground. But I've yet to see a nest. I've seen them with chicks, but I've yet to see a nest in all my times out here. So that would be quite a fun one if we could actually get a nest of one of these ones. Jeez, that would go down like an omelette. No, I won't say it. Ducklings did come to mind, but then oh, there it's out. But so there's a lot of birds that are going into the breeding season now, and it's really, we've just got to make a concerted effort to keep track of any interesting behavior. You know, a dove flying with a twig or a feather, or, you know, a bird like this, a coron sticking in one place day in and day out, You know, suddenly it's like, you start piecing these things together. So how's that interesting behavior? It was out in the open, and the longer we've sat, the more kind of suspicious it got. So I'm just going to move into a little bit of cover there, and he's probably actually going to make his way across and go into the bush line out to the left-hand side of the vehicle there. And they often exhibit what we call freeze behavior. And a lot of animals do that. So if they think they haven't been seen, they will sit dead still. Butterflies ask, do they sit in trees? These birds, I've never seen them sit in a tree. Their feet are not designed for perching. The feet aren't designed for perching, so they won't be sitting in trees at all. If they are in a tree, if you ever see one in a tree, it means it's been caught by something. It's busy being eaten. He's actually trying to keep that bush between us and him. He's making his way straight towards that bush line like we thought he would.
This lioness has gotten up and moved a little bit further, but not that far. So we just looped around to the front of her, and she's still very intently listening and looking in that same direction. As she got up and moved from her last spot, it seemed like she was able to get more of a reaction from the rest of the pride, and it actually looks like she's looking back towards where the rest of the pride was sleeping. And so they could be on their way. Maybe she's listening to them walking through the grass. Maybe she's checking to see if they're still sleeping in the same spot. But what I'm hoping for is, we started the afternoon off with them thinking that they might try and find the rest of the pride and call. But by her behavior, it looks like she might be more interested in hunting, especially for now, than trying to find the rest of the pride. And so she would not be calling looking for the rest of the pride who's separated, only because it's just a dead giveaway for her position. She doesn't want to be vocalizing and roaring as loudly as she could and just give her position away, so she won't be able to catch any animal by surprise. But I mean, if we maybe just zoom out a little bit, we parked at quite a distance away, and she is just so camouflaged if she stops moving, especially when she puts her head in front of the grass there. And where she's laying down is on a nice, well-used game path, and so there's very little grass. So if she needs to get up and move silently, she doesn't have to worry too much. I mean, look at that. If we didn't show you where that lioness was, I think it would be very difficult for anyone to spot her. And so if she wants to get up and move silently, she doesn't have to be as conscious about her foot placement as focusing on what has drawn her attention. I actually, for a second, I didn't know where she was until that ear flicked. Albert lions will hunt at night, yes, for a number of reasons. I was talking a little bit about their conservation of energy and why they only like to move around in the cooler parts of the day. So that's got a big factor. At nighttime, it's always much cooler, so they don't have to worry about cooling themselves down. But then probably as an important factor is the way that they hunt. And so they are quite like that leopard where they are an ambush predator. And so they rely on their camouflage like this, and they try and get as close to their prey as possible. And although it's very difficult for us to spot them, there's animals in this area that have got incredibly good eyesight. And so it's a lot easier for them to get much closer and hopefully lead towards a potentially more successful attack if they're using the darkness as cover. So it'll be actually quite interesting tonight. I believe you've spent a couple of minutes looking at the moon, and it looks almost full. And so some animals will be able to see really nicely. So it'll be interesting to see if they manage to become successful this afternoon or this evening. I've seen it quite a few times where on a full moon night, the lions don't even bother. They stay in one spot and they will sleep. And they might be there for 24 hours until they wait for that moon to get a bit darker.
Speaking of the moon, Tia and I decided to get a little bit creative and frame up the moon between the branches of this magnificent dead leadwood tree. It's a joy being able to zoom in on the moon. Such a powerful zoom, you can really see fine detail and texture on this almost full moon. If anyone's feeling extra passionate, you can blame it on the moon, apparently. I read that it wasn't so long ago, a couple centuries back, they used to allow the claim that it was the full moon's fault to get a reduced sentence on crimes of passion. Labeled it as lunacy, apparently. Apparently some people do report heightened emotions around full moon time. The thinking is, if it can affect the tides of our oceans, why can't it affect the tides of our blood and brain? A very interesting concept. I have no idea where I stand on that one, other than the fact that it is a beautiful full moon in the bushveld. Interesting how the full moon will affect different animals. Predators that rely on darkness to hunt will often hunt less. And predators like wild dogs that will hunt generally with their eyesight and they don't have the greatest night vision will often hunt more when there's a full moon. Obviously it helps them as they hunt through the bush at night. I love walking through the bush at night when it's a full moon. Obviously you got to be careful because our night vision's not that great, but if you don't stray too far, then just to go and slowly walk down a game path and let your eyes accustom to the darkness. It is quite amazing what you can see. You can really see very well. It's almost like a solar eclipse kind of a day where vision is actually quite good. What a beautiful evening it's turning out to be.
They're surrounding the car. The entire Nkuruma bride have literally walked past us within half a meter to spare. There's one in front of the car, Greg, look. Hey. Oh my goodness. He's standing on a log, don't worry. Hello. Oh my goodness. They're all going down into the drainage just as I thought. They hear something down there. I don't know what it is. This other little one's going to do the same, going to follow suit. Jump on the log, I think. less than a meter away from the car. They've all surrounded us. I'm just going to keep my voice nice and low. Purple Eye appears to be the laziest for some reason. She doesn't want to wake up, but she doesn't want to get up. It's time to go, guys. Oh, there's another lioness coming. Oh, there's more lionesses coming. I didn't see them before. I apologize. Everybody's coming over. They're all looking for each other. My goodness, they're all going to go up this log in front of us. Wow. I'm not going to move a muscle. Apologies about the spotlight. That's not coming from us, I'm afraid. We're in infrared. We're not using any artificial light. She's at eye level with me. I've never experienced this before, everyone. She's above the bonnet of the car. Was absolutely incredible, everyone. The others are going to go back around the other side of the car. See, Purple Eye's limping. Look. You see that limp? That's what we saw last night. It's the back right leg. She's in a lot of pain. That's why she's been lazy. That's why she's sleeping. Oh my goodness, another cub's looking at us in front of the bonnet. They're all just copying one another. Stay very still here because I have a cup right next to my bonnet, but we'll do our very, very best to keep up with this pride.
So this pride is also getting up, but very, very slowly. And we were focused on that older female with a limp in the bushes, and she got joined by the rest of the pride, which encouraged her to get up, and she's just moved out into these clearings. So we also pretty close to lions, I must say. They kind of scattered all around us. The majority of the pride, or part of the pride that we with at least, is here. So there's the 5 animals, that young male's right in the middle, and then the oldest female's on the right hand side behind the one in the foreground. The one in the foreground is the young white male. And so the other lioness has actually taken over her, and she's walked somewhere behind the vehicle, but I think she's also lain down just in a spot that we can't see her. that one is still on the snooze, but I'm sure it will get up once the rest of the pride moves around it. So now she's actually changed her tune. She's not looking in the same direction that we were seeing her look. She's now looking more back towards the river in more of an easterly direction. So there's a big yawn, so she might get up shortly, and we'll try and follow them right up until the end of show. Remember, we're still wanting to try and see if they're going to call for us.
What a stunning view we got you. All right, they're not linked, eh? Are they linked? Where must I go? No, you're good now. Okay. Just what a spectacular sunset. I was actually looking for a bird's nest here, but it turns out it wasn't a bird's nest. It was just a little clump of bush, or like dried twigs and that. So I thought, while I'm up here, let me enjoy it. Yeah, that's an African sunset. It's as good as it gets. Almost as good as it gets. Yeah. That's Africa for you, eh? Yes, it's been amazing having you all with us this afternoon. It's great. It's going out and knowing you're all out there and enjoying it. So yes, it's been brilliant.
I can vouch for that too. It's been an incredible afternoon. Purple Eye's left behind. Every other individual has gone. And Purple Eye's really struggling to walk. It's actually quite sad. We're up on an embankment here, as I mentioned. I'm not sure how she's going to get down. And I also don't think she's sure how she's going to get down. She's going for it. Wow, she did it. I'm not sure if we'll get any more views of her. They've gone deep into the Mulwati. Wow, that was a surreal experience having a Pride of Lions eye level with you. Okay, let me just roll back and see if we can get any sort of views. Doing too well on good old Wendy here. Yes, Heidi, nature shows us some incredible things, unexpected things. I'm a firm believer that we should always learn. The lessons are there, we just have to learn from them. Now I'm just going to put my lights on to see if we can see any lions. That was the tree that they were all standing on right there. I'm not entirely sure we're going to be able to give you another view of these lions, I'm afraid. They've gone deep into the Mulwati. They're after something. So again, dam cammers, keep watching. The dam cam is just up there. I have a funny feeling they're going to pop out there. Okay, everyone, I'm sorry, no last views, but thank you for jumping on board. It's a pleasure as always, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.